Buongiorno and welcome to My Way Thinking podcast, or MWOT for short, hosted by me, Lee Greeno, here live from the Man Cave every week. Hope you're doing well. Now, this is part 2 of the Mental Health Week, which is a special, slightly different to the other episodes that I usually do where we're talking journey. This is all about your mental health and offering advice, and I'm speaking to 3 of the best specialists. Yesterday we spoke to Victoria English, fascinating woman, lovely woman. Met the Queen 3 times, keep saying that. If you want to look, if you haven't listened, listen back to that. That is a great episode. Now, today I'm speaking to Robert Chandler. Robert Chandler's a lovely guy. He's working a lot with the community at the minute, and we met up and we spoke about what he's doing with Sky Blues in the community and offering help to men's health. But he also has some great advice for everybody out there, and he's a lovely, lovely chap, cracking character. So make sure you listen to this all the way to the end. Now, the chat is on YouTube as well. So remember, it's on Apple Podcasts. If you go on there, leave 5-star rating. It's on YouTube as well. If you put My Way Thinking podcast into anywhere, we pop up. There's some amazing journeys on past episodes as well. If you have a listen, I had a guy from Marriage at First Sight, Matt. That was a fascinating insight. We've also got filmmakers on there. Giles Alderson from the Filmmaker Podcast, he was on. We've got people who are mental health experts, which is this week, but also we've had them previously as well. We've got fascinating journeys. We've got some brilliant journeys coming up, so just make sure you keep listening in. So, like I say, we had Victoria English yesterday. Blah. We've got Robert today, and then tomorrow we've got Sarah McCaffrey, so make sure you listen to that as well. All good advice. We all need it. Listen in. Trust me. Okay, this is me talking to the brilliant Robert. So welcome to My Way of Thinking this morning, and we do have a very special guest on this morning, part of the Mental Health Week, which I promised you and we'll be talking about today. It is Robert Chandler. Woo! Welcome, Robert.
Thank you. Hello.
From my neck of the woods, Coventry, Royal Coventry. Have you always lived in Coventry, Robert?
Yeah, all my life, yeah. Born and bred Coventry. So it's nice to be kind of in and around it still and not having moved away.
What do you think about Sky Blues this season?
I think we've done all right. I think we need to start picking up points. I think today's an important game. Unlucky last time out. But it's getting to the crunch end now. I was looking at the table and thinking we've got a few teams under us with games in hand.
Yeah.
We haven't got that much distance than it looks. So.
It's dice, isn't it? I mean, I've always followed Sky Blues, and I haven't been and seen them as much as I'd like to. But I love it every game. Whenever you do go for a game, it's always an event, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. It's a whole day thing. It's just, I think that's the shame with it being over at St Andrews.
Oh, yeah. It's a pain in the arse. Yeah. Now, I was just saying to yourself, if this podcast goes out on all the usual platforms, but it also goes on YouTube if people want to see our pretty faces. Now, I've got a big shiner here, which I have to keep explaining on the podcast. It wasn't anything adventurous. I just walked into a top. And obviously, I can't really do anything anyway because we're stuck at home. So that's for people if they are watching. Right, well, thanks ever so much for coming on today. Now, usually the podcast is all about people's journeys and we go quite in depth. And obviously, I want to know about what you've been up to and how you got to where you are. But this is more about offering advice and just thrashing out mental health, because the reason I wanted to do this is I noticed that people are struggling a lot more than the previous lockdown. This lockdown, people that never say they were struggling have said to me, yeah, I'm really struggling on this one. So, and I've said this before, regardless of the level of struggle, everybody's struggling. So even people that are not really feeling it are still struggling in some way because we're locked down again. We had a taste of freedom. And even if you're still at work, similar to us, you still feel it. And that was the reason I wanted to do this. So first of all, tell us a bit about how you started off in mental health and how you got involved and where you studied.
Yeah, so I suppose it started at school, really. I think a general intrigue as to kind of psychology and what it was all about. And it's a big word, and it's almost kind of baffling. It's Greek, and it just seems quite cool. And often at school, I'd be the kind of person that people would talk to, or they'd end up just kind of spilling their problems. And I found that I was just quite good at listening and not necessarily, sometimes you don't have to offer advice, you just need that ear and to be there for people to feel comfortable talking to you.
Yeah.
And so, I thought I'll give this a go, give it a go at A level and see if I like it. And I really enjoyed it. I found it fascinating, the kind of different models and different ways and approaches of looking at things, and the history as well, because it's got a young history, but an interesting history when you think about Freud and kind of misconceptions there and where it all kind of started. So yeah, it's just something I found really interesting, and then decided to take kind of further at degree level. So kind of after my A levels, I decided to stay local, and went to Warwick, and just more so fell in love with kind of the abnormal psychology and the clinical aspects to it, and again was going through a period of time where people were still kind of looking to me for advice and talking to me, and it's still something I felt really comfortable doing and being able to offer. And I think throughout that period there were definitely kind of times where I struggled with my mental health through university and knew people that were also kind of struggling.
Yeah.
And I think that really helped me develop and grow that kind of passion for wanting to come out the other side of my education and go and work hands-on in that kind of clinical environment and make a difference and have an impact for the community.
It's interesting, isn't it? I speak to a lot of people, and some people will go through school not having a clue what they're going to do. They'll fall into it. But then others, like you, just had a spark at school and thought, wow. And I think that's great when people get that sort of epiphany, if you like, that this is what I want to do. Because then when you're studying at university, you're on the right path already. Some people go into further education, they're not quite sure, but I think that's a great way that you fell into it, that people just wanted to talk to you. I suppose you always thought, as you were at university, I thought, right, I suppose it's a nice build up, because you're thinking, what I'm doing, the harder I work, I don't mind how hard I have to work at university, because this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I think I got really lucky, and I think the education system, I think people have to choose at a very young age where their life is going to go.
Yeah.
And I think it's a bit forced, isn't it? And it's a big decision to have to make as a kid. So I definitely was fortunate, and I think I probably get a little bit from my dad as well, because he'd always say that he was the person that he'd sit on a bus and someone would sit next to him and open their life up and talk to him. So
yeah,
must be something about us. Must be our face.
You've got one of those faces.
And he's worked for the Samaritans and done bits and bobs and kind of done what he can do for the community. And I think that's probably get a little bit from him. But like you say, just lucky to have fallen into it and just kept going and going and going at it.
What was the course like at Warwick? Was it difficult?
It had its challenges. Psychology is more statistically and scientifically focused than I think people realise. It's very much evidence-based practice, and it's rigorous. It's it was a stressful course, and I think that's where I struggled at times, because I'm very much a kind of perfectionist and I want to succeed. And I think often if we have that mindset, we're not very kind to ourselves. And I went through thinking, right, I need to get a first class degree, and if it's below like 80%, I'm not too chuffed with it, and it needs to be to a really high standard. And I think pushing myself, I kind of lapsed on that kind of self-care and being kind to myself and cutting myself a break. And kind of now I'm further down the kind of psychology journey and able to look at these models and theories and therapies where it's like, if you're critical and you say I'm a failure or I'm not achieving X, Y, and Z, you put yourself in threat mode, because that's how our brains, we want to survive. So automatically we're being critical to ourselves. We feel threatened. We feel anxious. So that's what was going on for me at the time, but I just didn't realize it. I just wasn't giving myself a break, just striving for that perfectionism.
It's ironic. It's ironic, isn't it, that one of the biggest problems we have as human beings is to do with mental health, and the majority of the time we put it all on ourselves. We beat ourselves up about it. We are our worst critique. It's quite ironic.
No, definitely. And we have, so if you think about it in terms of like three systems, like a threat system, a drive system, and a soothing system, we're really good at using our threat and drive systems, but we never, or we ignore or underuse our soothing system, which is that kind of let's not be critical to ourselves. Let's be compassionate. Let's do things we enjoy. Let's take a break. Let's schedule some time to be mindful or do X, Y, and Z. We just don't tend to do it. It's not, doesn't seem to be part of the chaotic world that we live in.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing, is the way the world spins is just so fast now. It's just stress induced. As soon as you drop out in mother's womb, it's
Yeah,
stress induced. And now with technology and social media, it's really hard to navigate all that, isn't it?
it is, and I think life comes with all of those stresses. And one thing that I often say in therapy is that will never change. You can develop mental health problems, and the bumps will come regardless. You could be perfectly well and you'll have the bumps, or you could be struggling with depression, anxiety, and have the bumps. The bumps are going to be there. It's like
Yeah.
waves. The waves won't stop. You just need to learn how to surf. And I think kind of it's the perfect analogy, because I think you need to kind of recognize what you're doing and what you're not doing, and what things you can put in place to support you to get over and get through those bumps. And I
Yeah.
think kind of knowing that, like I say myself, I'm a perfectionist, and I want to achieve and do well and always get my 100%, is actually stepping back and reminding myself that it's okay if I don't, and I'm trying my best, and that's good enough. And
Yeah, that's a good
that,
point.
tapping out of that criticism then reduces my anxiety, because I'm no longer attacking myself and threatening myself. It just allows
Yeah.
me to kind of soothe and push through.
Yeah. Now, so you finish at Warwick and you're all ready to go onto the road of a brilliant career. So what sort of happened then?
I got really lucky. Got very lucky. I worked, so throughout my undergrad, I worked, well, throughout my A levels as well. So I've always worked. I've always kind of, and again, there's that kind of drive to do something and get out there. I worked at a local business in Coventry, lighting shop. I'm not sure if I can say the name, but I worked there for 5, 6 years. And one of my colleagues, an old boy, he just kind of asked me, what do you want to do in your life? And I said, well, this is what I'm focused on. I want to do psychology. I want to go to uni in X, Y, and Z. And he turned around to me after probably 3 or 4 years of knowing this, and he said, "Oh, by the way, my a relation of mine is a psychologist at the local trust." I said, "All right, Pete, you've not mentioned this over the last 4 years. Tell me a little bit more." And it turns out she was the clinical lead at the secondary mental health service in Coventry. So it's IPU 328, the Community Mental Health and Wellbeing Team.
Yeah.
So he said, "Oh, well, I'll have a chat with her and see if we can, you can get that conversation." And it took him ages to have this chat. I used to ring him, be like, "Oh, did you manage to,
Yeah.
speak to her?" But it materialised in the end. So, kind of just as I was graduating in that final year, managed to sit down with this clinical lead and basically just get some kind of career advice and advice as to how to get into it. And unfortunately, with psychology, it's so competitive. I think it's the
Yeah.
second most taken up degree in the country, and
Right.
so everyone is kind of, and clinical is very popular within that.
Yeah.
So everyone is trying to force themselves down that same route of becoming a clinical psychologist or getting in the room with one. It's really difficult.
Yeah.
So kind of having that opportunity to sit in the room and have an hour with this person was just very fortunate. And so she kind of was a guide and told me that there was a number of options that I could do. Some things would take a long time, some things would be easy. And basically, from that meeting, she offered me a position in that team as an honorary assistant psychologist, which is basically a really fancy title for a volunteer.
Yeah.
So unpaid, but kind of getting your foot in the door in a big way.
Yeah.
So I did that for about 9 months, I think, worked unpaid, and just really kind of learned a lot of the basics. I learned how the NHS works, how secondary healthcare works, how little things like clinical systems and recording and risk management and everything that you kind of have to note and what to look out for. And then it was kind of instrumental in building my therapeutic skills. So it was the first time I'd kind of gone and co-led group work and had a number of individuals with really quite complex needs in a room, and kind of being able to see and practice that therapeutic aspect of the work in a group setting. So it was just a fantastic experience and a great way for me to learn and grow as a psychologist and to figure out what it was all about. And I suppose as well whether it was actually what I wanted to do, because you can kind of have a vision and say, I want to go out and help people and do X, Y, and Z, and I'm really interested in it. And then you get in the work environment and it's incredibly stressful and it's underfunded and it's emotionally difficult work. But actually, I found that I could kind of cope with all that and I loved it.
Yeah.
And, so a lot of my role was when I came in, and it's interesting, the NHS, it can often be a system that's quite stuck. So I came in and they had a referral pathway, the way they kind of operated. And I just looked at it and I remember saying to the clinical lead, why do you do that? Like, I mean, if there's an inefficient way of doing things, it's what you're doing.
Because we've always done it that way.
Yeah, no, this is it. And it just didn't make sense to me. I said, look, let's put in a new pathway. So I essentially from the ground up built an entire new referral process pathway, the way they were received, where they sat and where they went, how it was all managed. So within that, I decided to analyze the last kind of 3 years of data, look at all of the patients over that course that had been referred in and see what kind of journey they had, how long they were in therapy, how long they had to wait, and just get an idea as to what the service was doing and how long we were interacting with people for, because the waiting lists in Coventry are quite long.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's kind of trying to get those wait times down.
Yeah.
But in doing that, I got to read hundreds and hundreds of individual case studies and kind of get to grips with and notice patterns in people's journeys and the prevalence of trauma and how trauma is really instrumental in kind of causing mental and causing and sustaining.
It's interesting what you've just said, because you finish university, and I think this is good advice for anyone that's going through university, is the fact that you finish university, and that was just the beginning. I think some people go to university, they'll finish university, they'll fall into a great job, make loads of money, job done. It's not like that at all. It's really interesting that you came out of university, you still had to find a job. You volunteered and got that experience, so you're still not earning money, but you put the work in. And I think it's so important. You still have to put the work in and gain that experience. University is just foundation, really. And without that experience, you're building your way up, but it doesn't happen overnight. And I think that's important, that you put that hard work in, isn't it?
Without a doubt. I mean, I can't speak for, well, I'll touch on this after, but psychology in particular. I mean, I was watching a video a couple of days ago. I think one bloke was kind of discussing his experience after graduating psychology, and he put something like 150 applications in for.
Is that all?
Yeah. And I didn't hear anything back. Or got rejected. I think they had 7 or 8 interviews, didn't get accepted on. It's incredibly difficult to get into and get onto those kind of posts. People spend years kind of in care homes and as HCAs and kind of building a clinical basis before they can even be considered for an AP post. So as I say, I was very lucky, but prepared to kind of go in and say, right, I'll work for free and I'll do it for a long time to get my foot in the door.
And it's got you where you are. Now, the interesting thing is we sort of connected up, but putting things out there to people through social media and that, and I've got some other specialists on. We got connected through Sky Blues in the community. So that's where you are today, which is really interesting because you're involved in the community and you're interested in this new program. Now, we're talking about mental health. The new program that you're doing, seems to me that some of it is activity-based, some of it is talking, some of it's learning experiences, which is so important because mental health is not just one thing. You know, some people say stay positive, some people say go for a walk. It's really a pain in the arse because sometimes someone says positive to me, and I like to be positive, but that word is really getting on my wick at the minute. So talk us a bit about what you're up to in Sky Blues in the community.
Yeah, so this is a new role. I started in December. I mean, from what I was talking about before, I went to I worked in learning disabilities, then at a psychiatric intensive care unit, and then at perinatal. So I've done a kind of broad range.
Yeah.
And so now I've come to this role. So as I said, I started in December, and this is the first time So Sky Blues in the Community are the official kind of charity linked to obviously Coventry City Football Club, and this is the first time they've advertised for the mental health coordinator role that I've got. And that's come off the back essentially of funding from the National Lottery. So they've funded £371,000.
Good old National Lottery.
For the club for the Sky Blues in the Community to introduce a 5-year programme targeting men's mental health. So essentially the evidence base is kind of massive to show that men are quite hard to reach, and I think the suicide rate is higher in men. It's the biggest kind of cause of death for men under 50. So it's a really kind of difficult group to engage, and if we're not engaging men, then there's clearly serious outcomes that are preventable.
Why do you think that is? What do you think that is, Robert, with men? Why do you think it's higher in men?
I think that men struggle to talk, and they struggle to talk because there's an internalized stigma that they need to be strong or the breadwinner, or not show emotions, or that emotions are feminine, so they're pushed away or contained, and they then, because they don't talk about it, it builds up and it becomes unmanageable, and then very uncontained, and then it kind of gets to a point where it's gone too far, and they feel the only option, because they can't talk about it and haven't had support, the only kind of release or way out from that is to do the kind of the worst thing you can do and take your own life. And I think that's a big player. It's that internalized feeling of I can't show emotions, and emotions aren't for men. Whereas it's not the case. Everyone feels emotions, and men just tend to shut them away, or don't have the opportunity to have the conversations. I think men do talk in different contexts. I think, if you get a man to a pub or in a dressing room.
Pub? What's that?
Yeah, and this is the issue. Like you touched on, people are struggling at the moment.
Yeah,
because it's reduced that opportunity for interaction and conversations.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's more difficult to get into those contexts and have those emotional conversations. I think it can be good for social interaction and inclusion to be able to go out and meet up with the mates, but
it does, and it's a good point, because for men, we could all say we go to the pub, you go in with your mates, but there is something quite cathartic in it. And I know I'm not talking about getting pissed, but there's something quite cathartic just sitting down with one of your mates or a few of your mates, just talking about the football, other things other than family, because your wife, as much as you love her, or you might not love her, as much as you get on with her, you can only sort of have those sort of family conversations. Now, with guys, we know guys' conversations can be quite funny, can be quite rude. Anything can happen with guys' conversation, but it's a guy's conversation, and we're not getting that outlet, are we, at the minute? And it is a big deal, I think, for a lot of men.
Oh, 100%. And I think you touched on it really well. It's being able to have a different conversation that's away from the norm, like your home environment. And if you're a man that's struggling, and what we find with depression is we tend to ruminate and fixate on the past and things that have happened and stay in that kind of headspace. With anxiety, we tend to worry about things in the future that are outside of our control, and that kind of excessive worrying. So we're kind of either in the past or in the future, not necessarily in the moment.
Yeah.
So when you can get together and have those different conversations and speak to your friends and chat about the football, it pulls you away from kind of rumination and pulls you away from worry, and just allows you to be in the moment and enjoying it and having those, like you say, those experiences that you may not typically get if you're at home. And it's, like we say, at the moment, it's kind of become impossible, and things are getting, I think, as you touched on at the start, it's almost harder this lockdown because you've had that taste of things going back to normality, and it's almost been pulled back from us again, and the opportunity for inclusion and stuff is vastly reduced.
Now, obviously, you're going to do this course, and tell us a bit about this course. So, like I say, it includes activity as well as talking about mental health, which is great.
Yeah, so as I say, it's funded by the National Lottery for 5 years. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be offering a kind of 6-week intervention. And that will be a session every week for about 2 hours. So I've got, alongside myself, I've got a senior community coach called Jack Clemens. And so he's going to be delivering the activities element of the mental sessions. So that'll be, say, the first 90 minutes of the 2 hours, it'll be activity based. And that could be, it could be football, it could be badminton, basketball, it could be dance, it could be art, it could be anything. What we really want to emphasize is this isn't just for fans of Coventry City or just for people that like sport. We want it to be inclusive, and we want to co-produce it with the people that come through the door. So it can really take any form in that respect. And then I will lead the kind of mental health workshops, which will be in a kind of breakout room, a bit more of a private space, where we kind of focus on particular topics per week. So I think we kind of outlined, or in my head, I was thinking of looking at, say, depression, anxiety, stress, self-compassion, sleep, kind of physical health and behavior change. But again, if people come through and they say, a lot of us are really struggling, or I notice themes that they're struggling with relationships or social communication or substance misuse, then we can tailor the sessions to kind of suit. We may not necessarily need to do stress management, because it might not be a feature, whereas substance misuse maybe, or maybe substance misuse can be kind of brought into stress management, and we can talk about it as how it's a coping mechanism, and just essentially, like the activities, co-produce it with the people that come through, so that we can have the biggest impact and concentrate on the issues that are troubling the blokes in our community.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of premise of the initial 6 weeks. So like I say, the 90 minutes of activities and then the workshop. And then following that, we're looking to introduce a maintenance session, which will be ongoing. So that'll be on a weekly basis. That'll just be kind of the activity that Jack and I will be there for and run. And then individuals can choose to come along to that as and when, if they want to kind of stay involved with the group and Sky Blues in the community, they're more than welcome to. And that, like I said, that'll be ongoing. So there's no kind of 6 week limit on that. That will just be every week.
How do people get onto the course?
So referrals are kind of directly to me, so people can self-refer. It's also gone out to kind of the healthcare professionals, so healthcare professionals can refer in as well. There's a form on the ccfc.co.uk site.
Okay. I'll put links in the podcast anyway. I would guess you're gonna get a lot. I think you're gonna get a lot, mate.
Yeah, well, the kind of what we've had through so far is really encouraging and really positive. I've had a lot of referrals. We've filled up a couple of cohorts, so it's really, really pleasing, but also shows the need and shows why we're doing this and the importance of doing this. So it's looking really good so far, but we still need, this is a 5-year program. We still need to kind of get the message out there and tell people that we're doing this. And I think one important thing as well is, if there are ladies listening to the podcast or they've seen it on social media, it's really important to kind of not think, oh, it's just for blokes, but step back and think, is there anyone in your life? Is there a friend or a family member, or, brother or partner that might benefit from this, but wouldn't have the confidence or be able to say, actually, I'm struggling at the minute, and, I need some support.
Yeah. And what I love about the course is the fact that it's not like saying, I need help. It's a course where you're doing sports and activities and talking about mental health, but there's no stigma to it. It's quite, I would think if I was struggling, it'd definitely be something like I'd come and speak to you guys or get in touch from a doctor, because it sounds a real interesting, because I think, like you said before, the stigma is what guys get wound up about, is the fact that there's a stigma to it, whereas with this course it seems a lot more free flowing, a lot more inviting, and I think you're going to get some cracking people coming along that usually probably wouldn't ask for help, which is a great thing. It can only be a good thing, can't it?
And that's what we're hoping for. That's why we kind of emphasize that we want it to be open and welcoming and that warm environment, and also, like I say, not just sports based. People will shape this to fit the needs and the wants of the people, so that it does feel kind of inclusive. And I think that's really important. And if we can therefore target some people and get some people through the door that wouldn't, like you say, access services, then we're going to kind of be able to start pulling down those statistics, and that unfortunate statistic that kind of men don't access services, and it gets to that point where we get the worst outcome.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm really confident in our ability to do that and have a massive impact for Coventry and Warwickshire.
Now, you say that if people notice, so it might not be the person that's watching this, it might be someone they're thinking about. What sort of things should people look out for in other people if they think they're struggling?
I think definite kind of, if we know our friends and we know the people that were kind of in our circle and our family and stuff, and if you can kind of identify that there's been a change, or that somebody's a little quieter, or they've stepped over, or maybe they're not doing things that they would typically used to enjoy, or engaging in the activities they might have engaged in, or they're noticeably struggling at work, I think definitely kind of that withdrawal is a big element. It's typically in kind of low mood, because often people have these thoughts of I can't do this, I'm struggling, and then they feel kind of that feelings of low mood and sadness, and then physically they feel lethargic, and then their behavior is to withdraw. So kind of identifying that avoidance and withdrawal would be quite key, and probably one of the most obvious signs. But also I think a quick to notice sign of somebody that's struggling is irritability, snapping, and not being able to kind of manage or regulate their emotions as they would have typically. So I think, look for changes in behavior, and don't be afraid to ask, because I think, as we say, this is called mentor. It's important to be able to facilitate those conversations. If you even if you just got a slight idea that somebody might be struggling, or like a gut feeling, and if they're not, it doesn't matter, because you're still having a conversation and just checking in with someone. And I think with men in particular, always ask twice. I think that's the golden rule, because
Yeah.
if I turn around to you and said, Lee, how you doing? You'd be like, oh yeah, not bad, mate. I said, Lee, you got a black eye, and
Yeah, the
you've been,
white.
yeah, yeah, and I've noticed you've been a bit quiet recently. Are you sure you're doing all right? And typically on that second question, if you show that investment and the kind of care and that you're there and have that listening ear, you'll get a better response on the second ask.
Yeah, that's a great bit of advice, because we do it day in, day out. How are you? Fine. How are you? Yeah, I'm okay. It's ridiculous how often we do it. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
And like you say, if you ask again, it's like, really, how are you? Then people, it sort of gets into their subconscious, and they're like, actually, I'm not feeling too bright. And I think what you say is so true. And I speak to these specialists, and we always say you must talk, which is easier said than done sometimes. But I think the biggest thing is, if you know someone and you think they're struggling, what you've got to realise is, if you don't say something and something happens, you are always going to have to live with that thought of, I knew I should have said something. So you're far better off saying something than just staying quiet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we can't go back. We can't go back in life, can we? And I think, and that's where I'm saying, if even if it doesn't matter if you're wrong and they're absolutely fine. If you got that gut feeling, ask the question, and ask it twice, I think is what I'd say.
And as far as ourselves, like I say, we're all struggling. What sort of things can we do for ourselves to try and help with our mental health state at the minute?
We need to, I think, so I kind of touched on it in terms of my previous experience. We need to be kinder to ourselves and actually acknowledge that this situation is difficult, and that's okay, and we can kind of be struggling with it, and don't get into that mindset where you're thinking, oh, I should be able to cope with this, I should be managing with this is silly, it's just that we're having to stay at home. Actually, no, this is unprecedented. It's not happened before. People are on furlough that usually had structure and routine, and all that's changed, and they've lost that kind of element of our lives. This is really crap and really difficult. Allow yourself to acknowledge that, and don't beat yourself up over kind of how you're feeling, because, as I say, if you're being critical, you automatically feel threatened, you feel more anxious. The situation in itself is anxiety provoking, it just ends up cycling. So it's just important to kind of try and snap out of that mindset, be compassionate, use those affirmations. So, I'm doing my best, I'm pushing on, I'm still here, I'm still cracking through it. And I think engaging in activities that you enjoy and that help you, because often I think if we're feeling crap, we just want to sit there and don't do nothing and don't have any interaction. Whereas I think trying to push against that and do something that is fun, that is kind of has a self-care element to it, while we might not want to do it going into it, always after doing it we feel better.
Yeah, always.
And I think again, as I was saying, with depression, we tend to ruminate. With anxiety, we tend to kind of worry about the future. I think practicing mindfulness is something that has really supported my mental health. And I always looked at mindfulness. It's a weird one. I always thought about it in terms of kind of close your eyes, imagine you're at a beach with your toes in the sand. And I personally, that works for a lot of people, and fair play for people it does. It doesn't really resonate with me. I find it quite difficult to do that. But I think through my work, I learned that mindfulness is actually paying attention in a particular way, on purpose and in the present moment, which is essentially kind of dragging your attention muscle, dragging your brain to the here and now rather than the past or the future that you have no control over. And so there's kind of particular ways of doing that, or bolting that onto things that you already do. So it doesn't need to be that you have to sit down and do 30 minutes meditation. What I like to do in the morning, the first thing I'll do is I'll make a cup of tea, and I'll do it as a mindful exercise. I'll kind of notice what I can hear. I'll listen to the kettle and on purpose and intently, and then I'll feel the warmth of the cup and how that feels coming through, and then the feeling of the kind of kitchen floor on my toes, and what I can smell, and then when I'm having the tea, what I can taste. You know, really tuning into the elements of it, and by being that focused, you're allowing those kind of anxious thoughts to dissipate and go away, and kind of not get stuck in that rumination cycle. You're just being present, and it is able to kind of lift your mood and support you and kind of just drag you back into focus a little bit.
Yeah, that's again great advice, because this year for me, I hate New Year's resolutions, but I did say I'm going to get more into meditation, because I've been trying for a few years, and the ego always says don't do it. But like you say, it's not, people think, oh, you need to do meditation. No, mindfulness is a totally different, well, it's not, meditation is part of that, but there's so many ways we can be mindful. Don't put the telly on. Don't look at social media for 10 minutes. Sit outside, wrap up, sit outside, take in what the sounds, you know, go and smell. I know it sounds corny, but the smells and what you're looking at, and think about that, because we go through life and we just fire through it. And you look back on the day, what did I do today? I can't remember. Oh, maybe I was on Facebook for half an hour. Maybe I did this, maybe that. And even if you just give yourself just 10, 15 minutes, we talk about physical exercise and people are like, oh, I'm not exercising. Just go for a 5-minute walk, just up and down the road, and just look around and take in what you're looking at, instead of because you've got so many things in your mind and you're trying to think of one. I'm terrible for it because I'm a creative. I'm trying to think of one thing while someone else is coming in here, and so I've got no clarity. And what mindfulness does, it gives you that little bit of clarity. And I think it's so important what you said, just making a cup of tea. Brilliant example. How many times do we think about what we're doing when we make a cup of tea? We don't do it. We don't give a shit as long as it tastes all right. Just something like that. And I think that's a great example, and people need to think. And the other thing, what I would say, is the resources out there are phenomenal now, especially on the internet, for mindfulness, meditation and things like that. So there's no excuse. Years ago, we'd have to go to the library, find the little corner where there was probably 2 books that we didn't understand. There's so much help out there now for mindfulness. So it's, you know, that is a great example what you've just given there.
And it really does work, because it's something that can be, like I said, it's really, I know from myself, because starting out a little bit skeptical, doing it, noticing the effects, and like, wow. So sometimes on a Sunday night, I'd lie in bed and I'd think, oh God, I've got so much to do next week. I've got this patient to see. I've got 4 case notes to write. I've got an assessment to complete. And then I catch myself and I pull myself into the present, notice what I can feel, and all of that anxiety, when I finish, it goes and I go to sleep. Yeah. And I think your example is perfect. And again, I've said this to a patient in the past. I said, go for a walk, and walk as a tourist, because when you go on holiday, you're looking around, you notice everything. You're like, oh, look at that. Oh, that's, you know, amazing. It's different to kind of at home. Whereas if we walk in our own environment, we just tend to kind of go out and just try and get to our destination. Whereas you'll be amazed what you can see if you step out your door and imagine you're on holiday and walk as that kind of tourist, and notice the things that are around you, because you'll see things that you never knew were there and hadn't tuned into, that probably would have been there for years. I went for a walk with someone a few months ago, just around the local area, And I was like, I never knew there was a whole farm there. Like, what? I never noticed
Yeah,
that
I know. It's crazy, isn't it?
because we just don't tune in.
Yeah, it is a perfect example. Now, another thing I wanted to touch on is routine. Do you think routine's important? Give us a bit of an idea of what your thoughts are on routine, because I think it is important, but how people perceive it, I don't really. Is it important that we have some kind of routine? Has it got to be a large routine, a small routine, just something simple? What's your thoughts on that?
Personally, and again, from my experience, I find routine useful. Um, and that can be in any form. It could be that in the morning, I'm going out for a walk. In the afternoon, I'm going to prep dinner. In the evening, I'm going to watch a TV program. Or it could be that I've got loads of work to do. This is what I'm going to set myself to do throughout the day. But what I always try and do if I create a routine is break it down into manageable chunks. Because if I have a task that seems really overwhelming and I go and try and complete that, often I'll procrastinate or not do it because
Yeah.
it just feels like too much. Whereas if you break it down into little chunks, it feels like you're ticking more off and you're succeeding more, and then you're able to kind of achieve that end goal. And one really interesting thing is that researchers found that we get a hit of dopamine, which is like our kind of neurotransmitter for pleasure, essentially, like reward, when we complete self-set tasks. So it could be that and they can be tiny tasks. It could be that I'm going to say, right, at some point in the next half an hour, I'm going to make myself a cup of tea, sit down and read 10 pages of a book. If I complete those three things, at each stage I'll get a tiny hit of dopamine in my brain, which is reinforcing and makes me feel better. And it's like I say, you've achieved something. So you can break any routine or anything that you have to do down into tiny little chunks and get something positive at each step, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important in the world that we're in now. And like I said, with people on furlough and the difficulties of kind of the lockdowns, I think it's important now more than ever to schedule in things to do and to try and create a bit of routine. And it could be anything. It could be something entirely non-productive. It could be I'm going to spend an hour on my PlayStation, but in the morning I'm going to walk for an hour or going to read for an hour in the afternoon. It's just having something in place so that you don't feel so lost and uncontained and not really sure which direction you're traveling. You know, you're kind of working towards something and you're going to complete something and do something. So that would be kind of my take on it. And I always think kind of scheduling in some exercise and getting out is good, because I think we can feel almost trapped in our environment at the moment, and getting out and clearing your head, I think, is really important.
Yeah, definitely. I'll tell you a great, I was just checking it out a minute ago. There's a great TED Talk. TED Talks, if people don't know, on YouTube, there's great TED Talks, 15 minutes long, and they're always about something specific, but the talkers are fantastic. And there's one on there, if you put in how to achieve your most ambitious goals, I'll put a link in the podcast. His name's Stephen Danier, and he talks about small steps. And this guy is phenomenal. He learned at a young age that if he just broke things down into small steps, he could actually achieve anything. And this guy went on to achieve everything he desired. He became a pilot. Just bringing everything down. He's in the Guinness World Book of Records, but it's a fantastic talk. And it's like he said, you don't have to be a genius. Look at where you want to be, where you are now, and as long as you make those little steps every day, you're going to get nearer and nearer. And there's no way around it. You are going to get to where you want to go, because every day and I know that's on a big scale, but on a smaller scale, it's exactly the same, isn't it?
100%.
Yeah, you know, it is.
It's interesting because I had this conversation with when I worked in perinatal, a wonderful colleague, and she was really stressed and not. I remember her saying, "I don't know where I'm going. I don't have any direction. I'm in this particular kind of, it was an assistant practitioner role. I don't know what I want to do with my life." And no, well, it was more how to get there. And so we sat down and we said, well, what are your options? She was like, paramedic, general nursing, mental health nursing. I said, okay, so let's kind of pros and cons all of these. And so we went through it. Paramedic was struck off because she couldn't do nights. She'd done nights in a previous job, wasn't for her. General nursing, just something she's interested in, physical health she's interested, but it was mental health was the kind of where she was at, where a lot of experience and kind of passion was kind of sat at. So we decided on the option. And I said, well, how do we get there? And she's like, no, I don't know. It just feels like too much, too big. It's a big kind of aspiration and such a journey. I said, right, well, let's break it down. What do you need? How do you get on this? What options are available? And essentially, we broke it down to the fact that she needs to get a qualification in maths or something because she had a foundation degree but needed some extra thing. She needed to then talk to the NHS trust that actually offer the course paid, and then kind of go through the process of interviewing and doing all that later down the line. So we identified the first goal was, right, you need to go and get this maths qualification. Within, I think, 3 hours, she'd emailed off, been accepted onto the course, and then had, I think, 8 weeks. When did she start it? Before Christmas. So she found out that she'd passed this qualification just after Christmas. And all of a sudden, it was this goal. She never thought she'd get this maths because she didn't think that she was good at it. She didn't think this dream was kind of achievable because it felt so big. She'd gone from feeling really overwhelmed and not knowing what to do to actually on a kind of life journey where she's ticked something off. She's had the meeting with the trust in regards to the course. They've confirmed that she can do it. And actually, because she's got a foundation degree, she can do it over 2 years rather than 3. It will be paid part placement so she can carry on working. And that it will be starting in September. So just from that one conversation of let's break this down and see what we can do with it, it has massive knock-on effects and it can really allow and support achievement and attainment.
Yeah.
But often we just kind of look at things like, wow, that feels really big and really heavy and I could never do that. You can do it. You just need to take the little steps and get up there. There's no achievement without embarrassment either. I think embarrassment is your rite of passage to success. Definitely. Because we all start at the bottom and start somewhere and have to work towards things.
Definitely. Now, if people are struggling out there, maybe I don't know, we're all struggling, like I say, but there's different levels of struggle. What sort of advice, what's the best bit of advice or that you think you could give to people at this minute? Because I know the big thing is there is light at the end of the tunnel. Lots of people have been vaccinated. And again, it's easy to say, stay positive. Some people are probably holding back because they don't want to get hopeful. What sort of advice do you think you could give, Robert?
I think there's a couple of things. We haven't really touched on it, but I think exercise is your superpower. Yeah. And we can all do it. And the effects of exercise are massive. So the short-term effects, there's loads of research you can go out and read. We've got a kind of hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis in our nervous system, which modulates our stress response.
Big word.
Yeah. That's the HPA axis, essentially.
A HPA.
Right. So that controls our response to stress. So that releases kind of cortisol and such. Exercise, it sounds counterintuitive, is stressful, right? So that releases cortisol when we exercise. The great thing about this HPA axis is that it's a negative feedback loop. So when so much cortisol gets released, it triggers the nervous system to deregulate, right? So to reduce the levels of cortisol. So when you exercise and you're increasing your cortisol and you're going through that physical stress, when you finish, your system deregulates, and there's that period of buffer where it needs to kind of calm down before it can actually release any more cortisol. And what research has shown is that when people exercise, if they then go to work or encounter stress, whether that's psychological, physical, whatever, if they encounter stress, they have lower levels of cortisol. It literally has a direct reduction in stress. And then more kind of very immediate effects of exercise, it increases levels of dopamine and serotonin neurotransmitters, which are kind of massively associated with depression. Obviously, that's the point of antidepressants, is to increase serotonin. Exercise is your natural serotonin booster. And it does that immediately, but it also has a long-term effect in increasing the level of the neurotransmitters kind of existing in the brain. Yeah. So
And there's no excuse. There's no excuse. I know this really annoys some people about this exercise thing, and it's the people who are lazy bastards. But there's no excuse. You've got stairs, go up and down them. Oh, if you're in a bungalow, do some star jumps. Clean up. Clean the house. You always feel better. I hate cleaning. I hate it. But afterwards, I'm like, oh, done a good job there when it really happens.
You don't need to be a triathlete. You do not need to be a triathlete. Half an hour, 3 or 4 times a week. I mean, the long-term effects, your prefrontal cortex, involved in decision-making, focus, attention, it actually creates new cells and increases your matter in the prefrontal cortex, as well as in your temporal lobe, hippocampus, forming and kind of retaining memories. It increases the matter there, and I think those 2 areas of the brain, they are the areas most susceptible to neurodegenerative conditions later on in life. We're kind of protecting ourselves against dementia and kind of further conditions by doing that work now. And like I say, half an hour, 3 or 4 times a week, it's our superpower to kind of prevent and support with mental health problems, as well as kind of prevent health problems further down the line. So I think definitely exercise is one thing I'd say. If you can, and if it's possible, get out and do that. But other than that, connect with people, talk to people. Don't just kind of send a text. I think in these times, video call, let's have that kind of physical interaction where we can see, where we can look at kind of body language. I think only 10% of communication is verbal.
Yeah.
So just find ways to connect on a better level and reach out to people. I think talk. So men talk, exercise and chat.
There you go. Easy. And chatting, it's like you say, it's just such a simple thing, and there's no excuse now. We've all got video call and everybody's doing it. I mean, Zoom is free. And it's just connect. Text is so lazy and messaging, and we do it a lot because we need to. It's efficient and it's easy if you're up to something else. But there's no excuse at the minute because we're all stuck at home. So just give it 10 minutes, just actually pick the phone up, talk to someone, or video call them. That's a great bit of advice. And then so future-wise, we're all in lockdown at the minute, Robert. Your course is going to hopefully. We're going to have a start date. The government, I suppose you're waiting on what the government's going to say.
What we're going to do is we're going to, from the week starting, so in a couple of weeks from the 22nd, not sure on the particular day of that week, we're going to start offering things virtually. So we'll have a kind of virtual activities session, whether that be a quiz or do something with Jack and myself, and then the kind of workshop virtually.
Instead of waiting on...
Yeah, so hopefully the guidance, I mean, we just have to play that by ear, and then as soon as they give it the green light, we'll start doing it physically.
Yeah, well, I'll put all the links in the podcast anyway, so people can have a look there. But it's an absolutely fantastic course. I'm so glad to be involved in it, and I'm sure you'll help loads of people. It's just great. And the more the National Lottery put their funds out and spread it across the UK, the better, because now it's needed more than ever, without a doubt. Well, look, Robert, thanks so much for your time and coming on. I'm so glad I got you on here because the advice you've been given is just great, and it's going to go hand in hand with all the other specialists this week. And we'll hopefully next year we'll see where we are, get you on the podcast again and talk about some of the successes, which would be nice, won't it? Which will be great. And a bit of normality. Okay, Robert, you look after yourself, take care, and I'll speak to you soon.
Andy, thanks, Lee.
So that's it. Massive thanks again to Victoria for joining me today, and also for you for listening or watching. Make sure you follow the podcast because, as I say, we've got tomorrow and Friday 2 more mental health episodes, and then the week after we've just got some amazing, let me tell you, interviews. I know it's easy for me to say that, but trust me, some of the journeys are fascinating stuff. To keep up to date, go on Facebook, which is My Way of Thinking Podcast. Instagram is MWOT Podcast. Twitter is My Way of Thinking with a 3 on the end, without a G. Every week I also put the whole conversation on YouTube. Just put My Way of Thinking Podcast in there. And finally, if you want to get in touch or you think you'll be a great guest, then just email me, mwotpodcast@aol.com. I really hope you found today's episode interesting. Just make sure you listen in tomorrow because it's going to get even better. Until next time, God bless. Take care.